Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are coming from. Welcome to the webinar on artificial intelligence solutions in libraries. This event is jointly organized by the Information Technology section of the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, IFLA, and the National University Library of Slovenia, NUK, with the support of the Umetna Foundation. My name is Alenka Kaučič, and I come from the research department of the National University Library of Slovenia. I'm also a member of the standing committee of the IFLA IT section. I will be the moderator of this event. Before I continue, I would like to introduce you to Professor Dr. Ines Vodopivec, Deputy Director of the National University Library of Slovenia and Umetna Network Association member counselor. Ines, it's your turn to speak.
Thank you, Alenka, very much for the given word. Thank you all of you joining us today. It is my pleasure and honor to speak on behalf of our National and University Library of Slovenia as a host of this amazing online event entitled Practical Application of Artificial Intelligence in Libraries, of which there was, I must say, extremely huge interest worldwide. Interest of all of you present today, interest of the wide society of cultural and scientific workers, librarians, researchers, academics, and educational staff members from universities and schools, IT developers, data managers, representatives of governmental institutions and funding bodies, and of course, last but not least, also other professionals working in GLAM institutions. So today we are all more than 500 participants joining our sessions from 71 countries and all continents, connected with the same reason: artificial intelligence. The theme present in everyday's discussions in environments connected to digital services, collections, tools, access, in short, environments such as Umetna, our digital library of Europe. But also the recurrent theme of this year's IFLA Congress in Rotterdam. IFLA, the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions, as well as Umetna, as Alenka already mentioned, and Umetna Research and Umetna Tech communities are also co-organizers of today's event. The support of both most important institutions in the library sector gives us the opportunity to reach over the limits of the known library activity plans, but also an obligation to cover themes in the way we can all use them well in our work. But expression of such interest points also to another important aspect: the possibility to connect transdisciplinary and develop over-border, even over-continent collaboration for better capacity building in the field. This could not happen without hard work of our colleagues and speakers we will listen today. And among all of them, I would just like to express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Alenka Kaučič, our long-term head of research and also long-term member of IFLA section for the information technology, as she already said, who initiated this webinar and led all preparations and organization of the event. Besides the supporting team in our library, there was also a supporting team at Umetna, cooperating with us on a daily basis. This is the connection to remember. Not to be too long and not to take your time repeating what was already been written in the invitation program, let me just finish with one note. Although today's event is only about AI, funny enough, this speech was not produced using it. I only thought of it yesterday after the visiting of our famous Frankfurt Book Fair opening, where Slovenia is this year's guest of honor, and where the Ljubljana Manifesto on higher level reading was one of the cornerstones of the program. Having this in mind, I would wish you to embrace artificial intelligence as supporting tool to our endeavors and not to see it as professional competitor or even threat. AI is a product of work of human mind. But to be able to develop it and use it proper, we need critical thinking. We need you as our capacity mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines. Thank you very much for your words. Now I would like to ask Professor Dr. Andrew Cox to address the participants as the convener of the IFLA Artificial Intelligence Special Interest Group and on behalf of the IT section.
Welcome everybody to this session, and thank you to Alenka. And I am currently the convener of the AI SIG, but I'm really speaking on behalf of Corey Lampert, who is the chair of the IT section of IFLA, who couldn't be here today, unfortunately, but has asked me to extend our deep thanks to the National and University Library of Slovenia for organising this event, and especially to Alenka and her colleagues who had the vision to hold this event and have done so much work in organising it. So the IT section, I'm just going to paste a link to the IT section in the chat. The IT section has kind of recognised for a while the importance of AI in libraries and has tried to create a meaningful forum for the profession to discuss this topic. And of course, Edmund, who's one of the first speakers, as the former chair of the group, played a big part in that. In 2022, the section created the Special Interest Group on AI. And to date, the section has also co-sponsored some regional symposiums on the topic in Ireland, then in Singapore, and then earlier this year, South Africa. We also had, as has already been mentioned, an excellent response on this topic at the Rotterdam IFLA World Library and Information Congress. Corey wants to say to you that the webinar builds on this work and extends the important conversations around AI to a new region and to the virtual format. And we want to welcome all the speakers and attendees today and encourage you to engage with the IT section. So please reach out to us. Corey wanted to say, you know, you're welcome if you wanted to get involved in the work of the IT section. We offer to host webinars and in-person events, a little bit like this one. It's a good way to showcase projects at your own library and to hold discussions around things like responsible AI. We're also planning to hold another of these symposiums in Chile, Santiago in Chile, in April 24, and the call for papers for that is open now. But if you prefer writing to presenting, you can also share your work with the publication of the IT section, Trends and Issues in Library Technology Tilt. So just to wrap up, thanks so much for coming along today. I hope you really learn a lot from the event. I know I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you for your interest. And thanks again to Alenka and the National and University Library.
Thank you, Andrew. In recent years, we have witnessed the rapid development of tools based on artificial intelligence and machine learning in various fields. As Andrew mentioned, and also Ines, the interest in artificial intelligence among librarians and researchers is increasing. And its usage in libraries is also on the rise. The primary goal of this webinar is to explain the concept of artificial intelligence and showcase significant examples of its applications in libraries. We did some changes in the program. Natasha, could you just show the program? Dr. Edmund Balnaves will begin with an introduction to artificial intelligence. Due to urgent matters, Jean-Philippe Moreau, Gallica scientific advisor at the National Library of France, BNF, is unable to speak. Instead, his colleague Alexandra Adamova will present the artificial intelligence roadmap of the National Library of France until 2026 and the Gallica Images project. José Eduardo Cejudo Grano de Oro will speak about machine learning at Europeana. Following a 20 minutes break, we will continue with a presentation on text mining tools developed in the Audio Europa project by Dr. Inna Novalija, and Professor Dr. Andrew Cox and Dr. Mojca Rupar-Korošec will address ethical aspects related to artificial intelligence. Since we are limited in time and due to such big number of participants, we have turned off your microphones. If you have any questions, please write them on the Q&A space at the bottom of the screen. The speakers will try to respond during or at the end of the webinar. Now, let's continue. Allow me to introduce our first speaker, Dr. Edmund Balnaves. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Prosentient Systems in Australia and an active technologist in the library field. He's also a division chair in the International Federation of Library Associations and Institutions and was formerly chair of the IFLA IT section. Dr. Balnaves is actively involved in the development of open source systems, artificial intelligence, and discovery tools for libraries. Edmund, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Alenka, and thank you for the opportunity also to present to this very interesting webinar. Yes, my background is in information technology, particularly around open source systems. And it's very timely to have this webinar in what's become a very hot topic in libraries, although the technology behind this has been emerging over several years. And to put it all in context, we see a changing library landscape in many different ways. In the 1990s, when I was first engaging with library management systems, the library management system was the king of the library. It was at its peak, and it was the central system that all libraries strive to implement. Now it could probably be regarded as a legacy system. Its workflow systems are still around managing the activities of the physical library operation. But equally important, or more important to many of the libraries, is the context of the digital library system, the electronic resources, the learning management systems that interact with the library systems, the research management systems that enrich and feed resources through to those digital library systems, the discovery systems that bring together massive resources of intellectual content to assist the research process and are used by libraries to gather together multiple disparate resources in a single point of discovery. And online communication systems like Zoom, Teams, the tools that really came to the fore during COVID and have remained critical now to the operation of libraries and the interaction of libraries with their client, but also emerging, and we saw this in the IFLA Congress in Rotterdam, the use of augmented reality systems. The whole technology space that's accessible to libraries has blossomed over the last 10 years. And in that context, we've seen the internet become the core means of content delivery and for communications across mobile devices, but also the increasing use of the Internet of Things as a set of devices that all come together so that what the library represents as an online resource is more than just the technological platform that it's running on, but also the integrated devices that present the full scope of what's happening within the library. So a library building now becomes an online and dynamic resource. The sorts of resources that are there are, for instance, the Wi-Fi system, which is more than just an internet gateway. It also is an information source. It's a big data source. It tells you a lot about how traffic is moving around the library and what's happening in the library if it's used. So that sort of platform is more complex now than simply an online catalog that was the emergent elements of the original library management system. And you have integral to that open source. So open source is my playground. I use open source every day, and I integrate those open source systems. And much of what I work on is integrative work across open source platforms and contributing to the community of open source. Open source has been very important to artificial intelligence. A lot of the groundwork technology that I'll talk about in this presentation has its origins in open source and is still accessible in open source for those who want to engage. And open access, which has blossomed also to enrich the accessible data outside the commercial database systems, so enriching the access to knowledge resources. And analytics and metrics, which are the big data of library systems. So the sorts of information that you have and may or may not be using about the usage of your library systems, about the lending, the ways in which lending interacts with behavior and possibly even movement, so that you know how people are using resources, where they're using them in the library, where they're using them outside the library, and what sorts of resources they're using. And also the metrics of usage of resources with research data management systems outside the library altogether. So how research publications from your institution are used. And all of this is wrapped into the emergence of artificial intelligence in a big way, where it brings together a lot of the resources that are of interest, including in automation and robotics. So in that context for the library, AI has been around for a while, and it's in more systems than you might be conscious of. So there's GPT, which has overwhelmed the dialogue about artificial intelligence, but you'll see artificial intelligence embedded in lots of different ways in many of the things you use, including in the context of what we're using here. Some of you may be using translation tools within Zoom, or web translation tools, ubiquitous use of AI to do that sort of dynamic translation. In the library context, you've got discovery tools.
Edmund, I'm sorry, we don't hear you. Could you please turn on your mic?
There is some problem in connection.
I think this is okay.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. Thanks.
When did it cut out?
Just a few words before.
Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
strange. So we have the engagement with the library through content discovery and research support, and the integration of AI to enhance that process of discovery. And library vendors are building AI into their discovery tools. We have bespoke large language models, and this is an interesting area both in machine learning and in discovery. So that is going beyond the commercial models to enrich a large language artificial intelligence model based on your context, or your resource base, your language base, or the context of the research discipline that you're in. You have front-facing customer service models. Chatbots are becoming ubiquitous in many different systems, including libraries, and AI assistants, but also potentially outreach programs using AI. Checkout automation is obviously a very big one. You've seen, obviously, many of you, the Amazon supermarket where there's no checkout required. There's absolutely no reason that technology can't be applied within libraries as well, where you use a combination of facial recognition for your customer profiles to detect who's coming into the library. You can identify through RFID what they're checking out with a no-touch sort of basis. So you have that sort of context where you have a fairly complete non-contact engagement with the library. And many libraries are already operating 24/7, and the opportunity that AI can present in that is to enrich the experience for the client, even when they're in the library, for a range of different services that would be difficult to supply by in-person staffing. And that for many of the research libraries that I engage with, they are open 24 hours. And extending the capability to support the clients while they're in the library through AI is an interesting prospect. And within robotics, the sorts of things that can be done with robotics to support in the disability context, and with mobility assistance, and with the concept of surrogates with AI. Lots of different imaginative ways for using AI in the library. And then you have smart buildings, and smart buildings are all about the context of leveraging all the technology in the building. And it can be both using AI, for instance, for effective climate operation of the library, so that you're meeting the sustainable development goals in terms of the use of the technology, the electrical services and so on within the building context of the library by using AI to smartly apply that technology, including lighting and other services like that. So AI can recognize modes of behavior, and that's the sort of context where it can be quite interesting as well. And of course, you have traditional automation that's been around for quite a long time with robotics and libraries in terms of stock takes and book discovery, and offsite storage automation. All these are things that have been playgrounds for libraries quite some time, and libraries have been quite at the foreground of adoption of technology. And I'd expect to see that happening in the context of artificial intelligence as well, as they explore the possibilities of AI within the library context. So lots of possibilities there. So what is artificial intelligence? My reading is that it's the use of computer systems to achieve tasks that would normally have required human interpretive intervention. And that can include interpreting images for place, facial or object recognition. And this is an area where AI has proved to be very effective, because it's all about pattern recognition. And when you use the AI toolkits for facial recognition, the intrinsic element of it is fairly straightforward. You take a photograph and you derive, for instance, for a face, a pattern that defines the face, and you can use that pattern to search vast image stores to look for matching images. Or indeed, you can use it for things like single sign-on, so that when you walk up to the computer, it recognizes you without any further action. Interpreting audio for language recognition and translation. Obviously, you'll have all experienced that. So AI has been pervasive in that sort of area. Analyzing depth and breadth to discern patterns. It's all about that pattern recognition and the capability of using toolkits for AI for that outstanding pattern recognition. And controlling and managing the movement of robots in a real physical environment, which is quite challenging and could not be done without AI. And conversational dialogue management, natural language processing that recognizes, interprets, and responds appropriately to a human computer interface. What it's not at the moment, we're not at that point of singularity where computers become self-aware. That's when computers achieve a level of artificial self-consciousness, maybe it'll come. Certainly, we reached the peak of the library management system in the 1990s. We reached what I would say is peak book in about 2010. That's where the collections across the libraries that I look at anyway peaked at about 2010 in terms of their collection profiles, and in many cases have been declining since in terms of the physical books that they have, but not necessarily the aggregate collection size. It's just that the physical collections have been dwindling in many of the libraries that I deal with, and in certainly many of the smaller research libraries. The physical assets have often gone altogether and they've become a fully digital environment. And perhaps we'll reach peak human in about 2050, 2060, where the IT for AI has outpaced the cognitive ability of humans, but we don't seem to be quite there at all at the moment. But AI is more than ChatGPT, and I guess that's the message that I want to emphasize here. AI is a set of tools, more or less of which may be useful to your library, and you don't have to have everything at once to get some good benefit from AI. It's a set of tools that can do image and facial recognition, and in the context of libraries, you might have a large image database, and you can apply that to do things like machine learning, to apply keyword contexts across a large image store so that you can enhance the discovery of content within that image store. You may get mismatches, and there's a whole dialogue about whether it recognizes things correctly or not. But in many cases, you can vastly improve the discovery from resources like an image or a video database against the undescribed content that you might start with. And then there's the potentials in AI for mood and emotional recognition, which is an interesting area that emerges as you see and analyze with AI not only the textual natural language dialogue that's happening, but also interpret the human response. And that's obviously something that is of great interest in robotics and design. So that is to interpret facial expression, facial responses, so that the dialogue goes beyond the textual natural language dialogue into the interpretation of facial response and other elements that are about the totality of human expression. AI is also good as a needle in a haystack, identifying movement, dialogue, relationships that match defined patterns, all about the fact that the gaming computer, which was the original point of innovation for the GPU, for high volume processing of images within the context of gaming, was also the core to a technology platform that was revolutionary for AI as well. So your simple gaming computer has been quite core to this whole revolution of the building up of resources that can do massive multi-processor, large-scale processing needed to do the sort of quick identification of pattern matching across very large stores. And also injection, recognizing interests and injecting content. That is the ways in which AI can keep and understand a profile and enrich the resources it delivers you with the knowledge of who you are. There are 1,000 ways in which all of the things that I've talked about can be misused, but also enormous possibilities in the ways in which it can be used. And the things that bring that together for libraries are the ubiquitous use of technology, not just the computer sitting in front of you, but the video camera, the audio, the other devices that surround you, your phone, your movement on the phone, the whole context, where much more is understood in a big data context than you might realize. And the massive identity and image and metadata resources that exist in Facebook and other places like that, but also for libraries, because libraries have a lot more resources than they may be conscious of in the context of the whole engagement of a client with the library, both through the web and also in the physical building. And in data matching, commercial and government, obviously, which can be worrying sometimes, but also can be enhancing. And the other areas, big data's and AI are intrinsically linked. So toolkits for AI, they're all out there, and they've been out there for a good 15 years. The toolkits for image recognition and facial recognition are all out there, and can be quite easily deployed. I did an example of that in one of the AI seminars that we've had in the IT section on the ways in which you could deploy co-project image analysis to do a single sign-on within the CoHA system with minimal development. So that's using what are called application programming interfaces to easily deploy AI within your own application. And also for object description. That's a big area, obviously, for libraries to do that sort of coherent description of large image stores that might otherwise be a set that's very difficult to discover because of the lack of metadata description. Modeling off a large corpus is also a really interesting area and an important area too, because while you've seen ChatGPT emerge blazing onto the scene, what that's created is also an interest to get away from the generic nature of ChatGPT. The fact that ChatGPT is built off a corpus that is ambiguous, to say the least, and very non-contextual, and to build targeted corpus modeling approaches that take into the context your research context or your language context, and to apply those models more meaningfully, so to avoid the sort of generic nonsense that you might get from ChatGPT. What ChatGPT has done is has blazed through the world as an exemplar of the ways in which you can innovatively integrate many of these tools. And natural language processing, which is core to all of this, and once again, for which there are many toolkits available. So it's a playground you can actually start with immediately in an open source sort of context. And natural language processing used for modeling off a large corpus, for applying that model to sentences, and then in the larger context into chatbots, or into, even in the wider context, the generative pre-trained transformer, the GPT that we see with a sort of which is a wired up natural language processing. So all of this, fundamental to that, in many of the elements of our interaction with AI, is natural language processing, which is a process of recognizing intentions from spoken or written dialogue and responding appropriately. Just to succinctly summarize what the natural language processing is doing. And that can be also automating a multilingual conversational artificial intelligence context, like a chat, through learned and self-learning systems. Self-learning is less realized at this point. ChatGPT isn't, for instance, a self-learning system in that sense, although it may give a veneer of that. That process of intent and natural language processing, it's a intent recognition is a subclass of that natural language processing. And it's all about training data through your own models or through external models and classifying intents around that. And a great way to engage in how those models work is to use chat software as a playground. There's many open source chat models, and natural language processing and intent recognition are embedded in many of the models of interaction with the sort of human AI interface. And they can be applicable in the library context in assisted course delivery, in automatic translation, in learning and library assistance, in robotic assistance and chatbots. So, exploring natural language processing and conversational AI. There's a lot of ways to get started in this. And the reason I emphasize this is it's a good starting place to learn about what natural language processing is, and therefore about what's happening in something like ChatGPT to engage in the process. There's lots of tools in the open source context. There's BotPress, there's OpenChatKit, which has an embedded kickstarting large language model that you can then extend and play around with. And you have MindMeld, which is based on the well-known Scikit Python-based open source toolkit for a whole range of activities within artificial intelligence. And on the cloud, there's many entry points that you can play around with immediately, including Amazon Lex and Google Dialogflow. And ChatGPT itself has an application programming interface. So an application programming interface is a core sort of concept in certainly how I work within open source library systems. It's the glue between systems. It's the way in which you can, for instance, embed ChatGPT in your existing chat or library system, in the flow of the search system or in the flow of the discovery or in the flow of the chat that you have. Those APIs are fairly straightforward to engage with and explore and play with. And we had a fantastic presentation in Amsterdam by Patrick Chur from the Big Data SIG on the ways in which they're exploring the API for ChatGPT in integration with the National Library Board chat system service support there. Then you have other chat tools and the ways in which they're also deploying ChatGPT as integrative elements of their own chat tools. So it's a great playground. It's a playground you can explore if you want just to learn about what the process of training a model is about, and also, therefore, what the fragility of model training can be. There are many flaws, and what you see when you start playing around with natural language processing is those limits of natural language processing. It's as good as the model that you build, and it's as good as the depth of the model that you build. So the generative pre-trained transformer, the ChatGPT that emerged onto the scene, it itself is a natural language processing system trained from internet data with human moderation and able to generate new text as a structured text response. It's pre-trained, which means it's a guided neural network with sourced data, creating in GPT-3, 175 billion machine learning parameters as the context by which it responds to your queries. And you've got the transformer, a semantic analysis function to analyze and the request to pass the generative model, keeping a contextual network of the current semantic context. The result being a semantically sensible interpretation of the human input and a semantically meaningful, but not necessarily correct answer. And you'll notice that it often gives a different response because it's a smart contextual generative system that will generate sentences building a knowledge graph. The knowledge graph is quite interesting in that context because it's not just randomly responding with different sentences off the text that you're typing, like the old ELIZA model that many of you might have seen early on. It's building a knowledge graph. It's building an understanding as you interact with it, if you like, through that knowledge graph, building a semantic model. But it's got a limit to which it can sustain that over time. And you see that sort of collapse in a dialogue when you go too far down a chat with ChatGPT. But nevertheless, an impressive result in terms of the next generation of interaction that it gives in providing a reasonable and meaningful syntactical response to a question. Again, it's as good or messy as it can derive from its knowledge graph of the context of the question and its underlying store of machine learned parameters by which it derives the sentence that it delivers you. But nevertheless, a really impressive result. So there are some things you can play around with straight away. There's cloud development through Google, Amazon Web Services, Azure. They've all got toolkits. They've all got entry points that you can play around with those toolkits at no cost. There's application programming interfaces where you integrate your system together with tools like GPT and other services, integrating them with Google, Amazon, or Web Services and Azure tools as well. There's building your own models. That's where it gets really interesting for libraries. That is, not being dependent on ChatGPT for building your own resource of semantically rich, contextually enhanced content with your own deep language model. And there's libraries exploring that. An extension through plugins of your existing systems to use these AI resources. So just to emphasize that it is all happening. It needs library engagement because you need to be there to be engaged in where things go. AI doesn't have to go badly. And that's partly all about getting on top of AI. And that's investing in learning. So for your institutions to be investing in the process of your own staff gaining the skills and understanding of AI and how it operates. In looking at governance review to make sure that the deployment of AI is ethically and sensibly responsible within your institution and doesn't violate elements of privacy, that the use of AI is well expressed and understood by your clients that are engaging with the library. And so engaging in the ethics and pragmatics and education about AI is quite significant. And in that context, where the library is part of an educational institution, partnering with the other faculties and research areas that are also engaging in AI, and learning and understanding and educating the client base for your libraries in AI and its strengths and its weaknesses, and to explore and experiment through a whole range of areas, including self-learning, to use the AI playground that is already out there. It's not a black box. Well, some of it is. Open AI, for all they've got the word open, don't have an open source base that they provide. But nevertheless, you've seen there is a rich toolkit by which you can explore, deploy, and experiment with a lot of this software. So plenty to do, plenty to play with, plenty to learn, but also for institutions, very importantly, to invest in that learning and to open the dialogue with the staff, with the clients about the nature of AI and how it will affect the library in a new generation of services. Thank you, everyone. It's a very exciting time to be working with library systems.
Thank you very much, Edmund, for giving this very interesting overview of the use of artificial intelligence in libraries. Before I continue, just note that in the bottom of your screen you have these captions, so you can follow also in written way what is spoken on the presentations. So now coming up is Alexandra Adamova. She graduated at the History, Heritage and Digital Technologies Master's Program at the École Nationale des Arts. Alexandra Adamova joined the Bibliothèque Nationale de France in 2014. She's in charge of the Gallica Images project, which will be presented in continuation. In addition, she will speak about the artificial intelligence roadmap of the National Library of France till 2026. So, Alexandra, go ahead.
Thank you for this introduction. Okay, I will share my presentation. Is it okay?
Not yet. You
Oh.
should.
Just a moment, I will retry. Is it okay?
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, okay. I will talk to you about the different experiences and experiments of BNF. We've been working on AI projects at an experimental scale for several years now, focusing mainly on optical character recognition and optical layout recognition technologies. Our projects were mainly carried out in an experimental mode, using the opportunity of European or national research programs. NewsEye, a European project, is a good example of OCR or OLR tools applied to explore press collection and can already be considered as AR, even though the term was not largely used at the time. A few years later, the building of our data lab dedicated to research on our digital collections was also a way to experiment tools based on data mining and natural languages processing. But if it's relatively easy to develop successful experiments on a small scale, it's much more challenging to industrialize the experimental process and the scale of the whole digital library. We have 10 million items, 250 million pages, including 50 million images. The AI roadmap was designed to describe how we would experiment and industrialize AI in our institution and led to identify 5 actions. The first action was to make AI a part of the BNF strategy. The new contract plan with the Ministry of Culture in France gives us structuring objectives for the next 5 years. Released in January 2023, it identified AI as one of its 4 cross-cutting axes and formalized the decision to work on AI in the upcoming years. The second action was to consider how we can better work within the library on integrating research and development projects in our current organization, to be in capacity to go from research and development to actual industrialization. Third, we identify skills upgrading as a major challenge. There is both a need for an expert level to lead some projects and for global awareness about AI within the staff, both at top management level and intermediate levels. AI projects are transdisciplinary. They require clean data and expertise in data, as well as collection curators to work together, which may be a challenge. The fourth action is more on the technical side. It's a library where efficient data quality and data management, but it's still a bit scattered or siloed in our infrastructures. We need to work on global governance that breaks the silos, and especially the technical silos that separate, for instance, the catalog data from the digital library data or the web archives data from other digital collections. The fifth section is to develop concrete projects with partners from the academic fields, other libraries, or even the private sector. We use the roadmap as a big picture for projecting the library beyond 2026. While we are working towards the direction, we probably will not be able to achieve the roadmap program by 2026. Because its implementation has shown that it's rather the starting point of a dynamic that will probably take even longer than that. It's more a matter of having a complete overview of all the actions we want to undertake and how they relate to one another. Among the achievements of this year, we can mention the development of a professional community around the challenges of artificial intelligence, internal communities through webinars and numerous information and training sessions open to all the BNF staff, as well as the organization of public events to gather a large community around common concerns. The launch of Gallica Images project, the first project involving integrating AI developments at a large scale. A few words about AI ecosystem. At the BNF, the core AI team includes 3 members with complementary skills: project management, digital collection expertise, IT support. This unit is at the heart of an ecosystem that brings together experts from collection departments, the strategy and research delegation, IT services, and the data lab. A larger community of more than 30 people is involved in the projects according to different needs: technical expertise, collection expertise, administrative support. A broader community of more than 100 people aware of AI activities through workshops, webinars, and newsletters. One of the major challenges for integrating AI in the transition from experimentation to industrialization. To meet this challenge, we identify and refine the use cases step by step. The diagram shows the different stages in the maturity of AI projects and the associated human resources. Experimentation helps further develop skills and refine the needs. Research and development projects are both a way to raise funds and help to get an idea of what is possible. They deal with the challenge of integrating into current processes. Industrialization is a crucial step and a major challenge, both financially and technically. Alongside the Gallica Images flagship project, which is mainly aiming and enhancing the discoverability of our collection and providing new services for users, several experiments and to address our internal needs are underway. With the forthcoming legal deposit of digital documents, it's becoming crucial to integrate AI processes to help subject indexing, as is already the case in Germany. We are only at the first step of investigation for a moment, but we also have needs of internal data processing for a better understanding of our collection and their state of conservation. We use handwritten text recognition applied to conservation files. For example, the diagnostic and treatment follow-up sheets for decertification were typewritten and completed by hand. This information was not included in the data system when the digital turn happened. The aim is thus to retroconvert those handwritten data to enrich the knowledge of the collections and of their care throughout the year. If this experiment succeeds, we will try to apply into other corpora, especially for retroconverting handwritten cataloging files. Artificial intelligence is more than just a fad. It goes with the promise of developing developing new services for our users and helping to improve internal work processes to cope with the even increasing volume of digitalized or born digital collections. AI has become both a source of funding through partnerships opportunities and a way to gain a better understanding of the collection. We see AI as an opportunity, but the overflow of projects goes with bottleneck effect and difficulty in meeting all demands. It's therefore necessary not only to reconsider the issues of skills development and infrastructure adaptation, but also to make choices and prioritize projects. Researchers and creative industries also see AI as a great opportunity, but it's sometimes difficult for them to deal with copyright constraints. A legal framework is under construction, both on European level and national level for research purposes, through the exception to copyright for text and data mining for the sole purposes of scientific research. But this is not the case for commercial purposes. Therefore, the creative industries needs, as well as emergence of large language models, raise new issues around reuse and copyright. A new problematic emerges with the use of digitalized collections as data to train large languages models. Thus, BNF is facing a growing number of requests of mass data retrieval, particularly OCR, either for data mining or for enriching data sets used to train large language models. Those requests arise from research institutions, but also from startups and private companies. We should rely on concrete use cases to determine how royalties should be applied in each case. License, agreement, pricing. We still need to define our pricing policy and a billing method for this type of use. Invoicing for the commercial use of massive data corpora must take into account the company's business model and may envisage other forms of counterparts, such as free use of the service developed and support for integrating it in the IT system. All those practices must nevertheless be strictly regulated. We are working on it. In the meantime, ready-to-use zip files containing comprehensive datasets of monographs and periodicals are not longer available directly through API, but can be delivered on demand, free of charge or after payment, depending on whether it's used for academic or business purposes. The BNF AI roadmap leverages the work done so far on image analysis and other topics. The image mining project will be the first AI project to enter into industrialization. Is part of the research and discovery field of the AI program, which also includes commodification of HTR at large scale, both for collections and internal document processing. Other fields are addressing cataloging activities, collections management, user engagement, and AI-aided governance. Gallica Images is an ambition project, given the size of the Gallica collection, 10 million documents online, and its diversity. It's indeed the result from more than 5 years of academic experiments and proof of concepts. The first challenge was to find funding for this scaling up. We applied for funding from a state innovation agency with national partners. We received this year a funding of 1.3 million. Total estimated cost of project is 3 million. The current challenge is to deal both with the size of collection, 10 million documents, and its diversity to enable users to query images in the entire Gallica collection thanks to AI generating keywords. The project will be launched in 2024, and we hope to show you first successful results in 2025. Today, Gallica provides access to a considerable amount of data. These masses stem from digitalization programs for the collections of all the library's thematic and specialized departments. Here are just a few examples from the prints and photography department and the maps and plans department collections, illustrating the wide range of documentary and typologies and the nature of the iconography collections found in Gallica. Gallica's digital collection is enriched every year by the work of its partners. Libraries, regional organizations, associations, specialized libraries. This very diverse collection contains lots of illustrations that are not identified as such and can only be accessed by visual browsing the documents containing them. This is particularly true and very problematic of press illustrations. The Gallica Images project aims to facilitate access to iconographic collections by improving their indexing and enriching descriptions using content segmentation and classification algorithms. The aim of the project is twofold: to identify all the illustrated content in the digitalized collection and to provide access to this database for all types of users thanks to Search API and IIIF for images. This will ultimately enable users to query images in the entire Gallica collection based on generated keywords. The Gallica Images project is deeply rooted in a long research and development activity. Around 2015, the development of deep learning in France enabled us to diversify our areas of interest. From digitalization and optical character recognition to enrichment of non-print collections or those of printed material with complex layouts, such as the new papers. The project is based on feedback from various proof of concepts or research programs. In 2015, an experiment focused on the indexing of 3,000 images from the Banque d'Images was carried out in collaboration with a research team from the University of Cergy. The Gallica Peaks and Gallica Similitude projects that took place between 2017 and 2018 provided a proof of concept for using machine learning to classify and detect objects and to identify techniques or functions in illustrations. Gallica Snoop is a visual similarity search engine experiment conducted in cooperation with National Audiovisual Institute and INRIA since 2019. Since its launch, the project has continued to monitor the AI landscape, particularly for hybrid text-image models like CLIP. The idea of the Gallica Peaks project was to use deep learning models without any ontology in the background. This is in-house proof of concept uses generic image indexing services and some locally trained image models in an information retrieval scenario. Considering the historical period of the sandbox collections we used, beginning of the 20th century, we were quite satisfied with the results. Now back to Gallica Images project's methodology. In order to be able to query images in the whole Gallica collection, we identified three main stages. The first one is identify the areas corresponding to the illustrations on all the digitalized pages and record the IIIF coordinates of these areas in a database. The second one is describes these illustrations by creating new descriptors from existing textual metadata or by generating new descriptors using image classification and recognition algorithms. And the third one is to provide Gallica readers with access to the information through API and a search interface. The steps of the project are as follows. Identify and extract illustration from the BNF digital library, build a descriptive index of illustrations, build a digital index of illustrations to enable search by visual similarity, and build, managed, and make available to the public and partners the illustration database, encourage a collaboration between the BNF and its public. Here's an example of a segmentation obtained by a recent YOLO model on posters from the collection as part of a collaboration with students from a computer science school, EPITA. Textual metadata will enable a search to retrieve illustrations from queries formulated using keywords. The generation of new descriptors will enable search images by technique, function, and content. Finally, the aim is to give the general public access to the database containing 250 million image coordinates in the BNF collections and to provide new search and consultation tools to facilitate access and exploration using a public query interface. At the end of the day, the new service will meet the needs of both the general and specialized public, BNF staff, and institutional, academic, and creative industry partners. For readers and researchers, the service will make browsing and querying possible. For BNF staff, the service will help enrich and curate data and content. Finally, the service opens up new possibilities for institutional partners, academic partners, and the cultural industries. A few words about our timeline and the chronology of our project. On May 2022, we applied for funding from a state innovation agency with two partners, National and University Library of Strasbourg and National Institute of Art History. The success of the attempt enabled us to issue a call for tenders in January 2023. We are now in the phase of selecting our future service provider, and the project will be launched in 2024. A BNF team will be dedicated to the project, in addition to the staff involved with the partners and the service provider. We plan to produce a new publicly accessible database and its API, and to integrate these resources in our systems. The IIIF protocol will be used to let users and machines access to the image content itself. To conclude, it's the responsibility of national libraries today to fully integrate AI in the strategy, their action, and their discourse. Because of the many uses of AI in our daily life and the questions it raises in terms of ethics and economics, not only can libraries do something for AI, but they must get involved. International cooperation is crucial to progress on issues that all libraries will face sooner or later. They help to leverage the use of AI through better understanding and use, promote sharing, collaboration, and standardization of AI between institutions, and to identify areas of AI with particular significance for libraries. and thank you for your attention.
Alexandra, thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. And it's really amazing what you are doing in your library. And I would like also that we start something very similar in ours. And I hope that we will do very soon. But really, you are 10 years front of us. So thank you very much. Now we will go to our next speaker, José Eduardo Cejudo Grano de Oro. I would like to introduce José Eduardo. He joined the Umetna Foundation in May 2020 as a machine learning engineer in the Research and Development Department. He holds a bachelor's in physics and master's in applied mathematics. His work at the Umetna has focused on applying artificial intelligence for improving data quality and automatic enrichments. José Eduardo, the stage is yours.
Thank you for the presentation. I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry that I cannot activate my camera.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect. So, okay, so I will divide the talk in three parts. First of all, I will introduce a little bit Umetna, what do we do. Second, some lines of work about AI at Umetna, how we are applying this technology, and also some best practices and recommendations for last. First of all, what is Umetna? Well, Umetna is an online portal for cultural heritage with more than 50 million objects coming from several different aggregators and several thousands of institutions. We have a lot of data and we want to expose it to the user. And we also follow the FAIR principles that probably you are familiar with by making the data findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And we will see how machine learning and AI technologies can help us doing this. We can devise two main goals for our machine learning efforts, namely enrichment and data curation. So enrichment could be defined as contextualizing the content of the objects with metadata and augmenting the existing metadata, so adding more data to complement the existing metadata. And also regarding data curation and quality, we can use AI to improve the quality of our collections and also to identify perhaps not that great objects that could be curated. Also, I will mention some lines of work that we are developing to achieve this, namely enhancing image resolution, the detection of watermarks in images, duplicate image detection, and solving some natural language processing problems with ChatGPT. So the first use case, as I mentioned, is enhancing the resolution of images. And the problem is that with several millions of objects and thousands of institutions, the quality of the objects added varies quite a lot. Sometimes the objects added or the images have very low resolution thumbnails, and this can hamper reusability as well as user experience. This is the problem, and the solution that we found is that we can apply out-of-the-box machine learning models, which are open source and which are freely available, and can artificially increase the resolution of those low resolution images. And as you can see in the examples on the right, the results are quite good. And we are currently applying this to our collections. The second problem that I wanted to mention that we are currently working on is the detection of watermarks or property marks in images. As you can see in the examples on the right, there is like a small stamp in the lower right corner. And as it happened with super resolution, this can hamper again the reusability of images. Let's assume that a student or a researcher wants to use some of those images for their publications, the images having watermarks might actually hamper the reusability of those objects. In order to solve this problem, we are creating from scratch a model, a classifier, an image classifier, which is able to detect whether an image has a property mark or not. So we are training our custom model. We are gathering our own dataset, and it's working quite well, actually. Another line of work that we are working on, also regarding images, is the detection of duplicate images. So this is particularly useful for curation of data. When we have large collections or large data sets, it's common that some of those objects are duplicate or near duplicate. Or, for example, let's assume that we have the work of a certain painter, and this work is uploaded by two different institutions. Therefore, it's likely that we have the same object, but with two different but similar images. So the goal of this project is to identify those pair of similar images and at least know that they exist, and so we are able to flag them and perhaps remove some of them from the collections, so that the experience of the user is not too bad. No, the user doesn't continuously find the same images, and they get bored and they stop using the platform. We are doing this by using a pre-trained model already, so we can get low-dimensional vector representations of those images by applying the model, which are called embeddings, and this allows us to compute the distance between images, and therefore we can consider duplicate images, those images whose distances are quite small, right? So this is another project that we are working on, data curation. And the last line of work, which is a little bit more focused on natural language processing, is solving certain natural language processing problems using ChatGPT. So as you know, ChatGPT is a service released by OpenAI, which admits prompts in forms of text, and it also returns text. So what we did was to identify some problems that we had in Umetna, where this technology could be useful. Those problems are date normalization. So basically, when we want to standardize the format of a certain date or time period, language detection, so identifying which language a piece of text is written, and also name entity recognition. So in a piece of text, identifying agents, time periods, places, and concepts. So the reason that we're using ChatGPT is because it works quite well for this kind of problems, and also because we don't need to train the model or particularize the model to our particular use case. So it has already been pre-trained. We can give some examples or some instructions on how to solve our problem, and then we can use it out of the box. So no fine-tuning, no pre-training needed, which simplifies quite a lot. So one could create an API that directly communicates with ChatGPT, and it solves the problem directly. The preliminary results have been quite promising. We need to figure out a couple of details so that we make sure that we obtain the response that we are looking for. But in principle, it's quite promising, and we think that we will probably use this technology to solve some problems that before could take us months or years to develop the software, to evaluate, and so on. Now, basically, we need to like particularize our case a little bit and make some evaluation and problem solve. So after mentioning those 4 lines of work, I thought it would be useful also to mention some best practices and recommendations that we are trying to follow, or mostly following for those projects, which are the documentation of datasets and models, the creation of datasets, how to carry a fair evaluation with these kind of models and projects, and also one last aspect that I thought it was important, which is model explainability. So regarding documentation, you probably are familiar with this piece of work, datasheets for dataset, which basically gave some indications on how to properly document and the motivations for properly documenting the process of building datasets and models, right? So the main goal for this is to make sure that we know the data provenance, we know where the data is coming from. Also some transparency and accountability, so that we make sure that the intended uses of models and datasets are clear. And also to facilitate reproducibility. Sometimes when working with data, with massive amounts of data, it's difficult to actually get to the same results as another research group. The more we document, the more details we give, basically as creators of those models and datasets, the easier it will be for a consumer to reproduce the results. It's good to highlight that this documentation is good for both creators and consumers, because for the creators of the service, in this case, Umetna, we are encouraged to reflect on the process of creating and building the model and dataset, and the consumers also benefit from it because they know exactly what this dataset is intended for, and they probably can reproduce and have more information about it than otherwise. Another methodology that we are using too is the curation of datasets. As I mentioned, our collections have like thousands or even millions of objects. Sometimes it's quite difficult to ensure the quality of these datasets. By the way, either our collections or also the datasets that we're using for training and for building models. And what we're doing is to use certain tools also based on machine learning to visualize and to be able to navigate and to cluster those images. So as you see on the right, this is like a 2D projection of like a point cloud of images. Each of those dots is a small image, and this is how graphically represented could be our collections. So with these kind of tools, we can navigate those collections easily. We can see clusters of similar images. We can visually examine the datasets instead of examining one by one, right? So we can have some kind of like interactive representation. Also regarding evaluation, this is a tricky part, because sometimes it's relatively easy to build a model, but then it's relatively difficult to evaluate the usability or even the performance of those models. So we need to make sure that the evaluation is fair and that it really reflects the capabilities of the model on the wild. So not on the data that we are training it, but on our collections in our case. So some of those tips, this might be a little bit too technical, but it's good to make sure that we don't have the same data in the training and the test dataset, of course. Also that we keep the similar distribution, let's say, between the training and the testing data, so that the distribution of the data is kind of similar between those two. And also it's good to follow the practice of cross-validation, which is repeating the same experiment several times with different train and test splits in order to really assess or average the performance across all of those experiments. So we get a better approximation to the real performance of the model on the web. And last but not least, I would like to mention model explainability. So in many problems, deep learning turns out to be kind of a black box. So those are very complex models, often with millions of parameters. And we know how to train the models, but we don't know exactly why a model is taking the decision that is taking. So, for example, in the examples that you see here, in the detection of watermarks in images, if the model detects that an image contains a certain watermark, how do we know that the model is actually looking at the watermark? No, I mean, how can we explain the decision of the model? And it turns out that there are some techniques for doing so. And those are called explainable and interpretable AI. So in the case of image classification, for instance, one can create a heat map, which you can superimpose to the original image to see which areas, which pixels affect most to the model's output. So in this case, you can say, okay, the model classified this image as a watermark, but why? What are the pixels that are making the model classify this image as so? And then, as you can see here, the watermark, the heat map generated contains two areas, one of them in red and the other one in blue. And those pixels in red are those pixels with the most contribution to the model's decision, which in this case is watermark, as you can see here. And you can see that indeed this red area overlaps with the area of the watermark, so that we can make sure, or at least in this case, we make sure that the model is looking at the right area and the right pixels are contributing to the final decision. So this is a way to debug the model and make sure that the model is not doing something weird that we haven't trained it for. So in summary, AI and machine learning techniques is really helping us to solve some problems that were previously unthinkable in a way, or would have taken months of years of development. And in particular, is helping us to improve the quality of our collections, also to detect content that might not be suitable for certain use cases, such as in the case of watermarks that can hamper reusability and user experience. Also, in terms of dataset curation and improving the quality of our sets and our collections, and as in the case of the solving NLP problems with ChatGPT, it can also help us with metadata enrichment. And this is my talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jose Eduardo. This was really interesting because I didn't know what was happening on behind the portal of European, and this is really nice that you share with us. But since you have finished something earlier, we have still time. I would just use this occasion to maybe pose you the question from one of our participants. At what state are the different projects supporting the global machine learning, watermark recognition, vectorization, and the duplication?
Let me check if I can see the question myself.
Yes, this is on the question answers.
At what state are the different projects? Okay. So some of them are a little bit more in the stage of development. Some of them are a little bit more productionized. So the one that is most advanced now, it didn't require too much effort to put it in place, was the super resolution. That is the project that we're already deploying in production, and we're applying already to some of our collections. The next project I would say that is a little bit more advanced will be watermark detection, which is ongoing. We are experimenting, evaluating, and building the model. But then we are running into some policy aspects, like, for example, okay, what do we do with those watermark images? Perhaps some of the providers don't like that we flag them or that we eliminate them, let's say. So that will take a little bit more to finish. The project about duplicate detection hasn't been, let's say, scaled up, but we have already found some benefits by some colleagues using some tools that we develop internally, so that they can see that there are some collections with a lot of duplicates. So that has been quite useful internally. And the one about natural language processing with ChatGPT, that is still a little bit more in its infancy. So we need to really gather more data, mainly for evaluation. And that is still, well, we already have some alternatives in place. So I think those will still be used. So at this point, we are really more experimenting and discovering the potential. So only super resolution is fully deployed. And the next one will probably be watermark detection. The other two are more in the realm of experimentation.
Thank you very much. I would like just to tell you that you can pose the questions to the speakers in the Q&A space. And if they are here or they have, they can answer to that questions, you will receive it and you will see it on the same space. Now, let me introduce to you to our next speaker, Dr. Inna Novalija. She works as a senior researcher and advisor at the Artificial Intelligence Laboratory of the Jožef Stefan Institute in Ljubljana. I have to add that this institute, the International Research Center on Artificial Intelligence is located. So this is a few years ago, since 2 years ago. Inna is an expert in research and development in the area of artificial intelligence and data science. In particular, she's working on utilizing text analysis techniques for modeling and forecasting and data mining techniques for developing applicable tools and technologies. Inna, it is your turn to speak.
Thank you, Alenka. I'm going to share the presentation now.
This is great.
Okay, thank you. Let me just go towards the beginning of the presentation. Today, I would like to present you a European project called Europa that is dealing with olfactory and sensory experience in the cultural heritage domain. In my presentation, I would like to focus a little bit more on text analysis and in particular on how artificial intelligence can contribute to analyzing our cultural heritage. So we've already seen a couple of other presentations, and I hope this presentation will give you some practical examples about artificial intelligence for libraries and museums. First of all, a couple of words about Europa project. Europa project is about smells. And the objective of the project is to find and trace olfactory references in large-scale digital text and image collection across multiple European regions and languages for historical data. You can see the map with project partners, and project partners come from different corners of Europe. And the Jožef Stefan Institute is located in Slovenia. It's one of the core project partners. In the project, we are developing digital and multisensory resources to allow the users to access and interact with project data and also with storylines. We also try to define standards and best practices for olfactory heritage, as well as educate and train cultural heritage professionals. And finally, one of the goals of the project is to develop policy recommendations for decision makers that would help to preserve and guard our past and future olfactory heritage. So when we started with the project, we wanted to involve our experts. At this level, we asked them a set of competency questions. What smells were significant in the past? What kinds of practices produce smells? How did people use their noses in the past? And what types of smell expertise or experience can we find? What meaning did smells have, and how did they communicate identities or stereotypes? What emotions or feelings were associated with smells in parts of Europe at different times? How are smells represented in text and images? Which communities, institutions, or spaces were associated with particular smells? We decided on different methods and techniques in order to fulfill our project. And here I'm talking about sensory mining, artificial intelligence, computational linguistics, history and olfactory heritage involvement. And in particular, one goal of the project is development of the European olfactory knowledge graph. This knowledge graph should be derived on information from historical images such as paintings, drawings, and historical textual data, novels, scientific texts, journals, diaries, and some other types of data. Basically, the data which we can find in libraries, museums, and other cultural institutions. When we are talking about knowledge graphs, it eventually means that we need to introduce semantics into our processes. For instance, we are talking about vocabularies for development and use. In Europa project, we are developing smelly vocabularies. And on the right side of the slide, you can see different vocabularies which we are developing, such as olfactory objects, olfactory gestures, fragrant spaces, noses. And what we do, we also develop them in multiple languages: English, German, French, Italian, Dutch, Slovene. And on the left side, you can also see a list of control vocabularies realized during the project. And basically, these vocabularies are selected based on experiences from historians, olfactory experts, and I hope you recognize some of them also here. Now, since I'm talking about textual analysis, I would like to mention that we analyze, in this project, we analyze a great amount of data sets. And on the left side, you can see several examples of data sets which we analyze. And they are multilingual data sets, also English, Dutch, French, German, Italian, Slovene, Latin, right? And we would like to extract different frame elements related to olfactory events. And that eventually it means that we would like to extract smell words, smell sources, qualities, odor carriers, evoked odorants, locations, perceivers, time, circumstances, effect. And also we would like to connect smells to emotions. Here you can see an example how annotation is made, because in order to extract these frame elements, we need to create some training data sets. So we're creating training data sets in special tools. And this tool is called Inception. And it's just a visual example of how Inception looks like after some professionals annotated the frame elements. You can see a smell word stinking, and then smell sources related to this word, such as channels, lakes, some other polluted spaces, some other smell sources. You can see also different qualities and also different other frame elements. The important part to add that we are dealing with historical language. So in some way, it's a complicated task. It's a challenge which we, I think, successfully overcome this project. What we also do in this project is a historical analysis. It's very important for some historians to track some special words, to go into details. For instance, when specific smell sources, specific objects become smell sources, or later how qualities associated with smell sources change over time. So on this slide, you can see on the left side the percentage of occurrence when a given element or object was a smell source. And you can see that it changes over time, right? So if you look at the incense, it gets like more popular towards 20th century, or gloves, for instance, it has a very tricky line, right? And also ozone, right? Very popular towards 19th, 20th century. So it's different. And our historical experts like this analysis a lot. And if I go towards qualities, right, you can also observe the same smell sources with different qualities which we managed to extract. So I would also point out at candle smell source, and you can see that in 15th, 17th century, it has such qualities as abdominal, ill, fatigue, sting, odoriferous. It's related to smells, right? But if you would go towards 20th century, it has like more positive qualities, such as fragrance, scented, scent, perfume. So it's important details which we can track using artificial intelligence in this case. What we also do in the project is emotion detection. We do it on text, and we have developed a methodology for fine-grained emotion detection. It includes 38 emotions, and it's a multilingual approach. It's also multi-label classifiers. On the left side, you can see a figure which displays emotion correlation and how some emotions are correlated between each other. Okay, so since we also analyze Slovenian text, I would like to give an example excerpt from Slovenian textual resource. It's a text from Ivan Cankar, Življenje and smrt Petra Novljana, and it's presented in our tool, which I'm going to demonstrate later. But you can see what we managed to extract in this piece of text. Basically, we managed to extract the smell source, which is bread, and we also have the creation date, 1903. We have different qualities, such as dešecho, lepo spečeno, rumeno škorjo, maslenega, which is basically a nice qualities about bread. That's it's very buttery, that it has very nice appearance, and some other qualities. And you can also notice that it's a Slovenian language mentioned here. Now I talked a little bit about text, and I would like also to mention images, which are also a very important part of the project. And here you can see an example how the project deals with images and annotations which could be extracted from one specific image, natura morta compesci. And you can see different annotations on the right side, a cheese or fish, lemon, wine bottle. Those are all smelly objects, as you would call them. So they're all related to smell. And we can also notice that we have smell sources such as bivalve, cheese, lemon, bread, cat, and fish. And we have carrier, wine bottle, glass with stem, twice. One of the main results of our project is called Od Evropa Smell Explorer tool. At the bottom, you can see the link, and I would like to invite you to try the tool. Basically, the tool is presents over 2 million smell experiences. And it has a lot of content, textual resources, and also a lot of images, and it's multilingual in all languages which I mentioned before. And I also recorded a short video which we are going to see later of how you can interact with the tool. Just another important result of our project is Encyclopedia of Smell History and Heritage. This encyclopedia is going to be launched in November. And this encyclopedia basically presents articles about smell objects, olfactory places, smells, and some other important concepts for digital heritage experts, for historians, maybe for librarians also. And I don't know, it would look like Wikipedia, but for librarians, this would be very nice. And here we also have a factory storytelling kit launched in November 2023. And this is a how-to guide for working with smells in museums and other heritage institutions. And basically, it will be a starting point for professionals using smells as storytelling techniques. At the end of the project is going to end in December. Od Evropa partners are organizing a smell culture fair in Amsterdam. And I would like to invite everybody who has an opportunity to join this event. It's going to merge different technologies and the different experiences in olfactory heritage, and also different participants are expected from Europe. One of the complementary tools which we have in Europa is a tool that allows us to track smell news. This is more modern tool, I would say, but basically we can what we can do is to observe the news published now, and all the news which would be related to smells, to olfactory instances, would be saved and shown in this tool. Also, we can track the news about the project, and it's multilingual. It would cover all possible languages. Now I would like to show a demo. Let me just go to the tool and show from the tool. So here is our tool, which is called Od Europa Smell Explorer. And in this search panel, I can input any text. I would input a text glove.
Inna, can you please extend your window?
Is this
if
better?
possible? Yeah, this is better. Thank you.
Okay, okay. So now we can see a list of results which we obtained by the search glove. And on the left side, we have this panel, right, with filters, and we can search in title content, which I kept now. We can also search by smell source, by carrier, by quality, by emotion, by language. And we can filter by time, by place, by museum, and also we have some other filters. Now I'm going to select one result. So you can see the text is talking about the velvet glove. It's by Henry Seton Merriman. And we have a different types of olfactory experience identified in this small text. First of all, we have some emotions, which is nostalgia, love, and calmness. We have some qualities, right? And we also have some smell words, such as sin, scent, the bracken. And we can also see a different excerpts from the same source. If I go back, now I would like to search. I would like to search for images. I will search in images, and okay. So I found in images also the glove, right? So here we see that there are gloves in images, and glove is a very olfactory object. In the previous years, it was always scented. So people had scented gloves. That's why we consider it an olfactory object in our case. So I can go back, and I can try to search. Maybe I can try to search by language. I will pick up Slovenian language, and I would like some suggestions, maybe from the auditory, which we can use here. Okay, maybe.
Duch.
Duch. Duch. Okay. Let's do this.
What about knjiga?
Knjiga.
Knjiga. We have to search in text here.
Yeah.
So not in images.
No.
In text, it still loads. Okay, so here we found we found a lot of results for Duh, right? So we can try to select one. I will select this one, right? And we can see that we identified actually the correct result, right? So we have приятен дух, вонява, дешава, and we also have some qualities like затохлость, Slovenia. So we have the same possibilities in different languages, not just in Slovenian, but in different languages. So if I go back and I go back, and we can also search in smell sources. I have some time, right? Or maybe I don't have time.
No, you have, you can take a minute.
A minute. Okay, maybe then I leave to our participants to search, and I will stop sharing this, and I will just say that I invite everybody to join our cultural fair and to check our tools.
Thank you so much for sharing this. This is a really interesting project, and I have to mention that our Slovenian team used the corpus of text that we have in our digital library of Slovenia. So we are very happy to be part of this project in some way.
We are very grateful for this possibility.
Thank you. Now we are continuing to the next speaker. I have the pleasure of introducing to Professor Dr. Andrew Cox. You already met him in the opening address. And I already mentioned that he is the convener of IFLA Artificial Intelligence Special Interest Group. He's also a senior lecturer at the Information School, University of Sheffield, United Kingdom. His main research area has been around the response of the information professions to contemporary societal challenges such as new technologies, increasing managerialism, datification, changing conceptualization of learning, and a perceived social crisis around well-being. I think that I have read everything. So, Andrew, the floor is yours.
Alenka, thank you so much. And again, thank you for this event. It's been really, I've learned a lot so far. So I'm coming at this from a slightly different angle. So let me share my screen. Hope you can see that now.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So yes, I'm really here as the convener of the IFLA Special Interest Group on Artificial Intelligence. I suppose we take a broad remit thinking about the impact of AI across sectors. And so maybe I come from this from a more of a educational perspective, perhaps. But I would invite you to have a look at our webpage and perhaps join our discussion list. That would be fantastic. So, and just to say, I'm from the University of Sheffield in the UK. And my thesis really here is that AI offers huge potential benefits to society, including for access to knowledge, which is what we're all about. But it also poses huge ethical risks, especially when it's driven by big technology companies. And libraries have a pivotal role to play in promoting, being beacons really of ethical and responsible AI. But the risks from big technology are pretty great. And many of our encounters with AI aren't in the, should we say, safe, quality controlled realm of libraries. They're out there searching for information in general. So we know AI can increase access to knowledge. I mean, Edmund established this pretty well right at the beginning of the session. So we've seen AI in search and recommendation, other forms of personalization, in translation. And the case studies we've seen today from the national libraries show the power of AI to help manage access to collections of all sorts of different sorts at scale. And of course, there are also other valuable things AI can do, like summarizing texts or rewriting them for different audiences. But we also know from that history that there are all sorts of problems around misinformation, disinformation, and filter bubbles. And I don't think those issues have disappeared. An example I'm going to focus on is the obvious one of ChatGPT. Obviously, it performs rather well at a wide range of tasks, writing documents and writing code, and that's why everybody uses it a lot. And it also allows the user to pose queries in natural language rather than compose kind of keyword-based searches. And it gives an answer, not a list of references. And that's why it's super popular. It's actually changing, perhaps, how people search in general. And my point really is that these large language models do have a lot of beneficial uses, including within libraries. But I'm really talking about the disruptive impact of the big tech applications of AI, especially in the educational context. So let's just remind ourselves, I'm sure we all know this, about the problems of ChatGPT. Well, this is changing a little over time, but we know it's full of inaccurate, it gives out inaccurate information. Sometimes it's quite outdated, its information base. Doesn't acknowledge its sources, and if you ask for citations, it sometimes makes them up. So not very good from an information perspective. It's not really possible to identify text that's computer generated that has come from that form, and we don't really know how it relates to copyright material because the companies, all these types of search have been a bit secretive about how they've trained their models, so they probably use copyright material. They all say it's fair use, but that's questionable. Of course, we also know from a number of studies that there's quite a lot of bias in this content. It derives from the content the models were trained on, which is actually just web stuff out there, which contains biases that are repeated across society, I suppose, but they're pretty obnoxious biases, often racist and sexist. I mean, it's also kind of quite politically biased. We could also say it has effects on learning, particularly important in educational context in terms of making writing too easy. There's a feeling it undermines criticality and maybe sincerity in writing. In other words, it's kind of undermining the sense that when we write something, it should be in our own voice. It can be used for fake news, for misinformation. We can say it's probably going to generate more and more information, for our email and our websites with more and more content, probably of a rather homogenized nature. And that's going to really affect the information environment, the wider information environment within which libraries operate. There's a real lack of explainability of something like ChatGPT. There are privacy risks. Of course, the way that ChatGPT is really trying to sell advanced versions of the tool is increasing inequities of access to information. It probably works well in English, but not so well in other languages. We know that in its development, there was quite a lot of exploitative reliance on precarious labor. And finally, we know also these GPT models have quite a big environmental impact. So all in all, if we think about it, there's much in commercial developments of AI that are pretty objectionable from an AI, from a library ethics perspective. It flies in the face of equity and access to knowledge. It's not outputting unbiased information. It's not protecting privacy, not respecting intellectual property rights. It's not really reflecting participatory practices of developing collections or respect for minoritized voices or our commitments to the Sustainable Development Goals. Not that our services are perfect. Of course, we know that we've been having this battle maybe over decolonizing our collections for a few years. We're not saying our collections are unbiased, but it is pushing us and perhaps pushing beyond is asking questions about our ethical stance and new challenges that we need to kind of understand in a new way. So big tech overrides all these ethics issues, but maybe it's done as a favor. ChatGPT has kind of crystallized these issues, creating a space in which to start conversations about ethical AI. It's just such a sort of violation of everything we really want to see that and yet it's very popular. It's brought to the forefront the need to have a conversation about the ethics of AI, which we might not have had otherwise. But I would say the big tech companies, they've got huge data at scale, they've got huge resources, and these AI functions have been creeping out across the infrastructure for a long time. So when we present a library interface, we would probably explain exactly how it works. We try and document it. But in many big tech applications like Google Search, we know that there's a lot of AI behind the scenes, but it's not transparent. And increasingly in our daily searching for information in the information infrastructure, we don't really see the operations of those algorithms. So ChatGPT is maybe done as a favor in sort of surfacing these issues so that we can confront them as something that's already happened, is already happening, and is probably accelerating. I also think there's a fundamental question here about AI and possibly reinforcing workforce inequalities. The AI sector, the workforce is basically quite white and male. And the whole technology, the buzz around technology is often linked through cultural associations with patriarchy. So maybe we have to stop and think about how this whole debate about AI has diverted our attention from issues of equality, diversity, inclusion in the workforce. What is going to be the impact? So I think we need to have a weather eye on that. But I do believe, and we've seen it in the projects that have been described today, the exciting projects that national libraries are doing, that libraries can apply AI in very powerful, important ways and be beacons of ethical and responsible AI. And some of the ways we can do this is about how we manage these projects. And we've already heard a lot of these things, but I'm taking a lot from Lee's work, kind of bringing together different guidelines on how to do AI projects, and also the Vancouver Statement on Collections as Data. So we need to make sure that users understand the provenance of collections they're searching. And we need to go back to thinking about, well, you know, why are we choosing this collection to digitize and then to apply AI to? Why are our priorities inclusive and diverse? We need to consider the rights of those who are represented in collections, not just it's not just the owners or the creators of content, it's also who is actually pictured in that content. They need to be considered and involved in projects. We need to involve a wide range of stakeholders in projects. We need to kind of respect the intellectual property rights issues. We need to consider who the intended users are, how they're going to benefit. And we need to do things like Europeana, obviously fully documenting what we're doing, sharing code, training data, toolkits, etc. Being open about our activities in a way that sort of, you know, ChatGPT is not. We need to also evaluate projects from things like a sustainability perspective, because we know large language models in general, they're very expensive and they have a high sustainability impact. So on the one side, I think there's a real importance to having explainable AI, which has already been mentioned. And the sort of balancing of that, the other side of the coin, is really promoting AI and data literacy. You know, the more we can make AI explainable, perhaps the less we need AI literacy. But the less explainable AI is, the more we need AI literacy. So I think it's really important that we promote that. And so libraries play an important role, not just in doing explainable AI projects, which is highly valuable, but also how do we go about promoting AI literacy? And then I just wanted to kind of reinforce, I think the next speaker, Moya, will also say something about this. It's like data ethics are a big part of this. The AI that we're seeing today, unlike previous sort of summers of AI, is data-driven. So it's all about how we manage data and the data ethics of this. So it's about, as I've reiterated really points I made before, getting the appropriate consent and stakeholder involvement in AI projects. So a high level of public involvement, but talking to the people who are represented in data. Privacy protection, but also there's this danger that AI tools start to, through when we offer recommendation, that it kind of limits people's willingness to search for things. When you think about managing bias in the collections, so that's a really important dimension of it. ChatGPT hasn't tried very hard. We need to try a lot better. We need a lot more transparency and accountability. A lot of stress, I think, on data provenance. We need appropriate recognition and rewards and benefits to data subjects and intermediaries, such as like click workers, crowd workers, volunteers. We need to have safe practices of detoxification of data. I think data validity in the general application of AI is really important. And ultimately, because of the way AI works and looks at individuals, we have to think about how we represent people in data and protect their dignity, avoiding reducing subjects in their complexity to simplistic data models that produce like kind of the Amazon recommendations. Of course, there's a challenge here. Now, the national libraries are doing fantastic work here. And I do believe they're like beacons of how to do this, that the whole library world, from workplace libraries, academic libraries, all turn to national libraries for inspiration. I think looking across the library world as a whole, I think there is an issue here of resources. So if we take a kind of a resource-based view of AI capability, we'd have to say that to operate in this space, libraries need data, they need infrastructure, they need time and money. They need the human skills of like technical skills around AI, but also the business skills to implement, or industrialize, if you like, the services. And we need intangible resources like the ability to coordinate a response, the ability to change, the willingness to take risk. My question is, how far have libraries got those resources? We can see from the example of the National Library of France, the BNF, I thought they were sort of really addressing how they, over a long period, try and develop these resources. But many libraries haven't got this. So I turn to these two questions about how can we make more visible what has been done and what has been achieved, how good that is. And this event is really helping with that. But also, for many libraries who are kind of struggling with this whole area, who are their allies in the creation of creating truly open AI, and how can they be engaged? So how can libraries work together? How can libraries work across the GLAM sector? How do we reach out to people like state regulators to influence policy? I suppose those are the questions I kind of conclude with. And yeah, I've got a couple of other slides that are just sort of pointing to some resources from the special interest group, which would be great to have you engage with, but that's my presentation.
Thank you very much. Yes, you are invited also to the IFLA website that was mentioned, and you have really a rich set of very interesting resources on artificial intelligence. Just follow the special interest group. Thank you. Now our final speaker, but certainly not the least, is my colleague from the National University Library of Slovenia, Dr. Mojca Rupar-Korošec. She holds a PhD in Aristotelian ethics and serves as a library consular as well as a member of the NUK research group. She represents the National University Library in the Slovenian open science community and is involved in open science initiatives at the University of Ljubljana. Dr. Korošec is the editor of the primary Slovenian scientific journal in the field of library and information science, library, knjižnicah. Furthermore, she is a member of the IFLA Special Interest Group for Artificial Intelligence and the IFLA Europe Regional Division Committee. Mojca, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Alenka, for your presentation.
Everything's okay, Mojca.
Thank you, Natasha. I will start and end with my beloved paper. And this is my next slide. I will basically talk about data and data surroundings. We wonder how artificial intelligence, AI, works, and I will introduce some of the concepts of AI. Those are, the first one is like data ethics, data literacy, and also AI literacy. But before we start thinking about the practical applications of the AI in libraries, we must first look at data and the ethical aspect of its use as a key element for our work. I will also talk about respecting the legal basis when working with data in libraries. Data in its raw form may not provide any meaningful information, but however, when we processed, organized, and interpreted, data can be transformed into valuable information that helps with decision-making, analysis, and understanding. A review of ethical guidelines for the use of AI from 2019 by Floridi and Cowles identified 5 principles. The first one is beneficence, the second one is non-maleficence, and then is autonomy, justice, and the last one, explicability. The last one is one that is in response, it is made in response to the question, who is responsible for AI performance? Data ethics is a new branch of ethics that examines and evaluates moral issues related to data, algorithms, AI machine learning, programming, and relevant practices. Data ethics builds on the foundations provided by information ethics and assesses data practices, and those are, for example, the collection, creation, analysis, and dissemination of structured and unstructured data. It also deals with intellectual property issues and concerns related to librarians, archivists, and information professionals. However, as AI or machine learning systems are built using large data sets, discussions on data ethics are often intertwined with those on AI ethics. OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, proposes principles of good practice for data ethics in the public sector. It is important to take common values-based actions that put human rights at the heart of the digital transformation and data policies. This document introduces 10 principles of good practice for data ethics in the public sector, including a series of specific actions that can support their implementation. We noticed that the focus is on integrity, data availability, and trust. With World Data System, libraries can provide transformative digital library services, and many libraries are already working, especially in the United States, with this World Data System. World Data System has a mission to increase the capacity, impact, impact and the sustainability of data repositories and data services by three models they expressed. The first one is creating trusted communities of data repositories. The second one is creating the data lifecycle and all related components, creating first-class data that fits first-class research results. And the last one is advocating for accessible data for transparent and reproducible science. Those core ethical commitments and principles of data sharing provided of the world data system, that data, metadata, and information should be shared fully and openly in accordance with national or international laws and policies, including respect for relevant existing restrictions and in accordance with international standards of ethical conduct. The great importance is also on long-term data stewardship. We know already that AI offers many advantages in access to knowledge, but it also brings a number of ethical challenges, such as bias, ambiguity, and complex legal issues such as copyright. These issues have a direct impact on the achievement of some of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDG. The potential of AI for SDG AI Lab provides research and consultancy support through cutting-edge digital solution in harnessing the potential of AI and machine learning for sustainable development. We already recognize, especially in libraries, that the provision of quality data is essential to enable trustworthy data use practices. The increasing use of and reliance on data means that we need to acquire the tools and skills to critically manage data and its use. Libraries are tasked with identifying ethical issues in the use of AI in their services and what guidelines exist for maintaining responsible applications, and also how to guide library users in their own use of these technologies. Data literacy. What are the implications of data literacy for librarianship? Rethinking fair use of data in the age of AI is particularly important for libraries and their work. The importance of data literacy goes beyond the technical skills needed to work with data, and it is libraries that could support the most important dimension of data literacy. Libraries can also provide the ability to think critically about data in different contexts and to reflect on the impact of different approaches to collecting, using, and sharing data and information. Data literacy is for everyone and at all levels of society. What is data? What are its properties? How can it work? All those, the different regulations that need to be respected and insights that can be gained. This broad data literacy will be essential for all users, informing them about the benefits of new data-driven technologies and the potential risks. Let's empower data librarians, information literacy trainers, and reference staff to successfully integrate data literacy into their daily work. As part of information literacy, it is crucial to learn to think critically about data in a safe environment. And libraries are those safe environments, and librarians can help users to access, interpret, critically evaluate, discuss, and also use data in an ethical way. Knowledge is also made up of good data and is essential for education, innovation, and cultural participation. Data literacy aims to empower everyone, especially through libraries, archives, and digitally, to access, learn, know, and use data. Let's mention on this point the program that focuses on introducing changes in the legislation and practice across Europe that will strengthen everyone's right to knowledge, named Knowledge Rights 21. This program is based on the belief that access to knowledge is essential for society and that everyone should be able to access and reuse knowledge. It is a program of the Stichting IFLA Foundation, supported by the Arcadia Foundation in partnership with IFLA, Liber, and Spark Europe. The AI literacy imperative is the assumption that today we have a critical need to understand and be able to use the key aspect of AI literacy. And those are, for example, awareness, capability, knowledge, and also, as we mentioned many times, critical thinking. The development of AI has implications for society, and we need a clear roadmap for AI literacy education in a way that is understandable, motivational, and supports research integrity. We already know that AI can process text with remarkable success, often in a way not dissimilar to human action. But on the other hand, by lacking any intelligence, understanding, or cognitive ability. We also know that AI is fragile, unreliable, and occasionally incapable of basic human logical reasoning. However, libraries can provide support in understanding. And also, it is extremely powerful and potentially very used, but let's mention on this point that the best author is neither a large language model program, nor a human, but a human who uses an LLM program with skill and insights. Libraries need to be aware of these two dimensions. The first one is transparency, and the second one is access to models. Transparency means that legislators should define a legal requirement for transparency and for the documentation of databases, models, and procedures. And the second one, access to models. Whether a model is open source or closed, librarians and their users need access to system for personal assessment and design safeguards. The main providers, let me talk about it. The main providers of basic AI models are not yet compliant, but hopefully they will become so. We will see. OpenAI and Google are trying to align with the European Parliament's version of the AI Act, but these are complex issues and that the legal system will soon have to address. In this excellent place for the new role of libraries, we need to be very careful when integrating generative tools, because they don't just need data, they drive it. Data can be biased and unreliable, which comes not only from the data itself, but also from the design of algorithmic systems and how they are implemented. And on the other hand, and also who implements them. A few regulations. To what extent do these new technologies democratize access to information or centralize power in a few companies? In 2021, the European Parliament adopted a report of AI in education, culture, and the audiovisual sector as a proposal for a European Parliament resolution calling for AI technologies to be designed to avoid gender, social, or cultural bias and to protect diversity. The famous AI Act is the first AI law issued by a major body to regulate and classify AI applications into three risk categories. The first category is applications, systems that create unacceptable risk. The second one is high-risk applications such as CV scanning tools that ranks job applicants and are subject to specific legal requirements. And the third one, finally, applications that are not explicitly listed as a high risk, they remain largely unregulated. This law will classify AI systems according to their perceived risk and require companies responsible for making the most effective tools to disclose relevant information on safety, interpretation, and performance. Like previous technical regulations adopted by the EU, the AI law will undoubtedly have a global impact on the way technology companies do business. We will see, and it will be very funny. I will mention 3 more documents about data. The first document named is from 2019, Open Data Directive. The second important document is from 2020, called Data Management Act. And the last one is from 2022, called Data Act. All 3 documents are from the European Parliament. In Slovenia, the Ministry of Digital Transformation prepared a draft of the Act on the implementation of the EU regulation called Digital Services Act, DCA. It went in interdepartmental coordination 7 days ago. The draft law defines the procedures for confirmation the status of verified researchers and trustworthy applicants. The latter will be the first in the fight against the dissemination of large amounts of illegal user-generated content via online platforms. There is also a growing gap between the US and EU approaches to AI regulation, with the EU making progress on data protection laws, online platforms, and regulations of online e-commerce, while the US does not yet have similar legislation. EU and US strengthened cooperation on research in AI and computing for the public good and signed in 2023, in January, an administrative arrangement on AI and computing to address global challenges for the public good. We know already that we need new guardrails. The first guardrail is technical. AI creators can install fair use filters. The main providers of the underlying OpenAI and Google models are mostly not yet compliant, but it is assumed that they will be, given their compliance with the European Parliament's version of the AI law. This will be fun. And then there is the Artificial General Intelligence, AGI computer system, which can generate new scientific knowledge and perform all the tasks that humans can. With ChatGPT, we have taken an important step closer to AGI. The development of AI is not good or bad for society. The development of AI is for profit. Fortunately, regulation in the EU is on the way, but we also know that regulation takes time. It is not always very effective. For example, the GDPR, which is almost 6 years old, is only now beginning to be seriously enforced. And even when the EU takes the lead in regulations and sets some precedents, it almost always ends up for being voluntary and self-regulatory in the US, which is afraid of losing the AI race, for example, to China. Technology, policy, and ethics can guide the development of good spaces through a reflective, human-centered approach. Adherence to a sound legal basis is conditional for AI solution in libraries. Now I end with Pepper again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mojca. Now we are coming to the end of our webinar. And then now we reserved 15 minutes for question and answers. I see that the speakers already answered to some of the questions. And I would like just to see one of them, to say, there was a question directed to all speakers. I hope that some of the speakers are still here. I see Inna, Alexandra, and Edmund. Edmund already answered. The question was, please, how do you think could we use artificial intelligence for conservation of analogic items in small specialized libraries? Are there usable tools experimenting how to help in recognizing different affected materials, problems on component materials, etc.? I don't know whether any one of the speakers would like to answer in addition to Edmund, because we detected this problem also at the IT section, and we spoke also with the special interest group for artificial intelligence. We are also having a discussion with IFLA preservation and conservation section on this topic, and we just plan to organize an event next year. We are looking for possible speakers on this topic, experiences in libraries, because we know that in digital preservation, there is a lot of use also, possible use of artificial intelligence, for example, in digital restoration, metadata enhancement, content recognition, preservation planning, data recovery, or physical conservation, materials analysis, robotic conservation, climate control. This also mentioned, Edmund, risk assessment, documentation and inventory, or digital and physical integration of the collections in making hybrid collections, cross-reference, etc., etc. So we think that there are a lot of possibilities of use of artificial intelligence in this field, and we will let you know on IFLA websites, also on our National Library, University Library of Slovenia website. I don't know who will join us in this effort. We are thinking whether to do a webinar or just to make a conference on this topic. So we will let you know, because I think that this is a very interesting topic, but it will be next year. In the meanwhile, maybe some of the speakers would like to add something more to this question. No, then we are ending. The link to the recordings of the webinar will be available on the web page of all three parties. It has the National University Library of Slovenia, IFLA, and Europeana, where the event was also announced. So just go there in a few days. Let us a few days just to prepare the recording and to publish it. There was also a question that whether we will publish the slides of the presenters. I haven't spoken about it with the speakers. I will do. If those that will permit the access to these slides in PDF form, then it will be also published. Thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you so much to all the speakers. I think that I hope also for the others that the presentations were interesting, and so have a nice weekend. Thank you. Bye.